Now then, it's time to get the government's take on our stories this morning. Joining me now, as you can see, is the Security Minister, Tom Tugendhat. A very good morning to you. Thanks so much for talking to us. I want to start with the situation in Gaza and the Brits who are wanting to get out. Can you give us the latest on the Rafah crossing? How many British nationals have now left Gaza through that crossing?
So forgive me, I'm not going to give a running commentary because actually there's a lot of moving parts here and I don't want to alert people to the various different issues that might arise. But there's been an absolutely phenomenal amount of work in making sure that the Egyptian government, the Israeli government and indeed those running Gaza have enabled people to leave, because this hasn't been just down to one party but many. The Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary and I and many others have been on the phone to partners and to make sure that that operation goes as smoothly as possible. And we have identified British citizens and we're ready to make sure that that goes as smoothly as possible.
The reason I ask for numbers is just there'll be a lot of concerned families around the country who want to feel that some progress is being made. Can you give us a rough idea of how many people? Is it a handful that have crossed the border so far? Is it more than that?
Forgive me, I'm not going to go there. And I do understand why people are worried. Of course I understand why people are very worried. The situation in Gaza at the moment is extremely concerning. And that's why the RAF has just flown in some 20 tonnes of aid into Egypt in order to transport it north. And that's why the UK government has put £30 million available to make sure that we're supporting, which, you know, is about a third of the amount that the entire EU has put together. So it's a hell of a package that we're putting together to make sure that we're looking to help those people in Gaza today and help British citizens to leave.
And to go back to those British citizens, the Palestinian authorities have published a list overnight of those approved to travel through the Rafah border crossing. There are 92 British names on that list. How confident are you that all of those people will be able to cross today?
You'll forgive me, again, I really can't go into detail for the very simple reason that there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of different issues that come together in those exit routes, and different families will have different pressures in different ways. So you'll understand that it's not very easy to give a running commentary, and it would be the wrong thing to do. OK,
if you're unable to give precise details, that list suggests that there are around half the people appear to be on the list, because the UK government talked about 200 British nationals in Gaza. What kind of reassurance can you give to the families of those people who are not being named about their safe passage out of the country in future? Well,
I can give this absolute assurance that the UK government, from the Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary, me, many others, have been absolutely committed to making sure that we look after British citizens as best as we possibly can, and we help to get them out of this incredibly dangerous situation. And so we are working tirelessly to make sure that happens. Foreign Office officials on the ground, Border Force officials on the ground, they've been absolutely instrumental in making sure that we're able to support families and individuals who need to get out, and we will not rest until we have protected everybody we can.
And many of those families would have seen many more Americans getting approval and actually crossing the border out of Gaza. Can you give us some insight into why it is that more Americans than Britons are leaving?
Well, look, there are different ratios here. There are different numbers of citizens from each country are in various different areas. So these things are not directly comparable. But we've been working incredibly closely with our US and indeed other partners as well. And I was in the UN last week talking to Tony Blinken, and I know that James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary, has been working incredibly closely with our US partners to make sure that we have this opening, we have this opportunity.
Well, yes, and in May last year, when you were chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, you released a damning report about the Foreign Office's role in the UK's withdrawal from Afghanistan. Given that, do you have more confidence now in the Foreign Office's ability to manage this job during this crisis?
Absolutely. Look, James has been not just incredibly active in making sure that this is being done, but he's also been flying around the region, making sure that we're engaging with friends, with partners, and with some who, with all those voices who can try to get a resolution to this, including, of course, trying to get those hostages out. Let's not forget there's some 200 hostages who were taken only 3 weeks ago, who are still being held by Hamas, who are still being held in the most vile conditions, and who are literally in fear of their lives. So the work that the Foreign Office has been doing over the last few weeks has been exemplary, and I think that the consular aspect of that, looking after British citizens, has been absolutely front and centre of their efforts.
The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has just touched down in Tel Aviv. He's expected to push for a pause in fighting to allow for humanitarian aid to get in. How important is that, and how successful do you think he might be?
So the UK government has always spoken about a pause in order to allow aid in, and we've been absolutely, as I said, front and centre of the aid effort. The UK has put up £30 million in order to get relief aid into Gaza as quickly as possible. And one of the challenges has been that we've got to make absolutely certain that this pause in fighting is in order to support aid, because I'm afraid Hamas has been stealing aid off the Palestinian people, has been turning water pipes into missiles, has been effectively weaponising any outside element, whether it's concrete that's there to build schools and hospitals, and turning it into tunnels in order to protect their leadership and leave the civilian population exposed. It's been a consistent theme where Hamas has been turning this area effectively into a battleground and leaving the civilian population completely exposed.
I want to ask you just a couple of questions about the AI summit yesterday. At that summit, we saw the Prime Minister talking about how he thought that AI could be an opportunity for creating jobs. We then saw during his chat with Elon Musk a little later in the day, Elon Musk saying he thought there'd be one day where there would be no jobs. AI would take over all jobs. Who's right there?
Look, I think there's a regular debate on these things, but I think what the Prime Minister has set out is absolutely a vision, and the correct vision, for a world in which we'll have partnership with machines, with AI, in order to make sure that we're able to deliver better. Now, I don't think anybody's going to replace you in presenting the TV, because this human interaction is what matters. But you will be better informed. You'll have support through AI that will enable you to do your job better, and I hope will make me do my job better as well. And all of that technology coming together is phenomenal. Now, this summit is extraordinary, because what this has done is focus not just on the opportunity, but also, let's be honest, of the risk.
Well, yeah, there are bigger risks, but on the risk of jobs, there are a lot of people being worried already about losing their jobs to AI. So it's a serious issue, isn't it? How do you reassure people they're not going to lose their jobs because of technology? Well,
every time there has been a technological transformation, there's been somebody saying there'll be no more jobs, and every time there are more jobs. And the reality is there will be more jobs, there will be different jobs. We've seen this time and time again, where, the UK now has the highest levels of employment that we've ever had. And we're seeing the most extraordinary number of different jobs being created, jobs that didn't exist 20 years ago, and now mainstream. And we now have, quite literally, thousands of people achieving their dreams through various different ways that didn't exist.
You mentioned the risks. At the conclusion of the summit, the Prime Minister announced an agreement has been made on testing new AI models before their release, but it's voluntary. So what difference is it actually going to make?
Well, it's about making sure that we have a partnership together to make sure that what we're doing is that the technology is safe. And that's why we've got the largest companies like Microsoft, OpenAI, Meta, and various others, Inflection and so on, who are coming together to work with the intelligence agencies and with the technical partners to make sure that what we're doing is putting out stuff that's safe. And I think that's a fantastic partnership. I think it's incredibly important. And I think it shows that what we've got a combination between a government that is leading and tech companies that are being responsible. And that's a really good place to be.
OK, I need to let you go now. But Tom Tugendhat, thanks very much indeed for coming to talk to us. Thank you.